Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Paydirt podcast. I'm Tom Hannifan. He is Matt McGloin. Penn State is 6-3, finally off of a 3-game losing streak, back in the win column after a visit to College Park, Maryland. The Nittany Lions defeat the Terrapins of Maryland on the road in what is lovingly being referred to as Penn State's Maryland campus at this point. The Penn State fans did a nice job making their presence felt, as did the band. You could hear them throughout the game. So Penn State wins by a score of 31-14. So finally some positivity, which I think every Penn State fan was dying for. We're going to dive into what was kind of a slow and stagnant game for the most part. Penn State obviously pulling away in the fourth quarter and ultimately pulling out the victory, covering their 10-point spread as was projected. So that's good for a lot of people. Jahan Dotson having a career day, and I don't think any Penn State fan was really surprised to see the way that he went off. So number 5 continues to be outstanding. We're going to touch on Sean Clifford in terms of his accuracy was definitely something that was a problem, but was that his fault? Was that more the offensive line? Definitely want to get Matt's thoughts on that. And then at the same time, the Penn State defense has been the most consistent facet of this team the entire season. They did exactly what Penn State fans expected them to. So we're going to really sift through all this because I understand there's been a lot of negativity around this program, and when losses come up, people like to throw barbs at each other and at the coaching staff and everything. But you know what? We have something to be very grateful for and thankful for before the Michigan game. So I'd like you all to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications before we go any further. We are back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back on for another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Don't forget to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your bonus. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. The Paydirt podcast is presented by BetOnline, where the game starts. And of course, the Paydirt podcast is presented by Funk Brewing, which is the official craft beer partner of the Paydirt podcast. Matt and I are tremendous fans of Funk Brewing. I have enjoyed their products very, very much since Matt and I have started working on this show. And they've been good friends of yours for a long time, Matt. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Again, and they do a fantastic job. They have a ton of different beers. So, if you're somebody that, isn't in the craft beer scene or is very picky about what you drink, I'm sure they have something that you'll like. Again, they have IPAs, double IPAs. They have the fruity summer beers and a lot of the seasonal stuff. Again, their Silent Disco IPA is fantastic. Their Citrus IPA. So a lot of great stuff. They help me out every single year with my charity golf tournament. So it's a fantastic company and great people that own it.
You were just daydreaming about Funk Brewing and the next chance you have to have it.
I've got some in the fridge. There you
go. There's reason to celebrate this.
After we finish this podcast. Yeah.
There you
no
go.
doubt.
Funk Brewing is a lot of different styles and flavors, as Matt mentioned, 50 plus options over time, I think. You can find Funk Brewing at your favorite beer distributor and grocery store. Trust me, their fresh, funky flavors will satisfy your craft beer loving taste buds. For more information, visit funkbrewing.com to learn where and how you can get their fantastic products. Must be 21 years or older to purchase. Please drink responsibly. So Penn State now sits at number 23 in the AP Top 25 following this victory. So, it's about where Penn State should be, considering the way this season has gone. And the way that the Big Ten shook out this past Saturday, Matt, I wanted to touch on that real quick because Iowa continues to slip. Illinois bowed up again and beat Minnesota. Ohio State looked a little shaky against Nebraska. Michigan looked excellent against Indiana. Kind of looking around the conference real fast. What did you make of this past Saturday?
Well, so I do the Sirius XM ESPNU Big Ten radio, and it was on Friday, and Purdue, that was my upset of the week. Purdue Michigan State game. I haven't been sold on Michigan State. Like, no doubt they're a good team. No doubt Mel Tucker has done a fantastic job, so early in his career there. But there was a lot of holes on that team, especially defensively. And Purdue goes and throws for over 500 yards. And that was my only concern when I picked Purdue. It was like, which Purdue team is going to show up? Because they haven't been the most consistent team in the Big Ten. You can imagine if they would like to have gotten some of the games back they played this year, who knows where they be right now if they were able to put it together every single week. But Wisconsin, man, it looks like Wisconsin is probably the team in the West. And at the beginning of the year, who would have thought that? Even look at Minnesota. Like Minnesota had won 4 games in a row up until this past week, and you go out there, you put 6 points on the board. People were talking about them being the team in the West. So Big Ten is crazy, man. It just shows you how strong it is, man, and how you literally cannot take a week off in this conference.
The Big Ten West especially is a gigantic log jam of, I believe, a bunch of teams that are 4-2 in conference, I think, and then a bunch of 6-3 or 7-2 overall if you're Iowa. Iowa just looks very different since the Penn State Iowa game. It's been really interesting to see. And then to the point you said, Penn State goes on the road and beats Wisconsin at home. And it looked like for the better part of September and October, Wisconsin wasn't Wisconsin, but they have slowly crept back into the conversation. And then Ohio State just continues to be kind of suspect. It does make you think that if they get into the college football playoff, and a lot has to happen, could they get really, really thumped? I don't know entirely. And I think that's the curious thing about what is a relatively young team. They have a lot of talent, obviously, but it's going to be an interesting ride the remainder of the week, the remainder of the season especially. So let's dive into this game, Penn State versus Maryland. If you look at it, Matt, on paper, 31-14, and you didn't watch the game, Penn State fans like, yeah, that's about exactly what we should have done. It didn't feel like that at all, because I don't know about you, I was getting a ton of texts at the beginning of the fourth quarter when it was tied up 14-all, and a lot of those texts read WTF. What did you make of watching this game? Let's talk about basically the first 3 quarters of play.
Yeah, it was just a little slow, right? That they look good in spots. Wasn't very consistent. You mentioned Sean's accuracy issues. Yeah, he missed some throws, especially a few deep throws that would have been big for this Penn State offense. They're a little off at times, right? Almost sloppy at times. But then, like, you fast forward into this game, you look at the way they start the second half, right? A few great runs by Kevon Lee. Right. And that's all you need there in that run game with him. Get downhill, stay north and south, just give him a little crease, let him use momentum, some of that speed and that size, and he's going to be able to pick up a handful of positive yards for you. And then, you finish that drive with a great route by Dotson, on that post route. He turns around Maryland's corner, Jacorian Bennett, and a great accurate throw by Sean Clifford, 14 plays, 95 yards, a great drive. But it's like you see that, and then you see some struggles, right? Offensive line doesn't hold their blocks in the run game. The screen game wasn't there a few times. And I don't know if you agree with me, but, you look again, you have to think Sean's continuing to get healthy. You have to think he's still banged up a little bit. But, I mean, the run game from him, it wasn't there really again on Saturday. I don't think it's going to be there for the rest of the year, Tom.
No, whatever the injury was, it's definitely a mental thing at this point. Obviously, he's trying to protect his body for the long term. And it's something you and I have talked about ad nauseum on this podcast, is that there's nobody really behind him that has a ton of experience, whether you tag in Taquan Roberson or Christian Veilleux. It's a long drop off. So I think that's definitely something the coaching staff has probably said, hey, you got to keep yourself upright, because we got Michigan still to go, Rutgers, Michigan State. There's a lot that can be played. And then, of course, Penn State's now bowl eligible. So there's plenty for him to play for. Oh, and by the way, could he be back next season? So it's just thinking about his long-term health. But there were a lot of situations, Matt, where it was like he just seemed a little bit skittish in the pocket when there was the potential threat of pressure. And then especially when there was pressure, which you understand, did it look like to you he was just kind of maybe pulling the trigger too quickly on certain things?
I think a lot of times, and not just for Sean, I think it's for any quarterback that has dealt with injuries or has gotten injured or is even playing injured. You definitely do get skittish in the pocket because you're trying to limit your hits now, right? You're not at the point where you're feeling 100% where I'm strong. I'll stand in here all day. I'll take whatever hit you throw me. Like, because there are games and times that you feel that way, Tom. Like, it doesn't matter. Anybody can hit me. I'm getting back up. But there's also times when you're in the pocket and you're like, I've taken a bunch of hits today, man. And, once you start thinking like that, that's not good. That's not a road that you want to go down to, because you're not going through your full progressions. You start to predetermine throws, right? All right, it's cover 2, so I should have my in cut here. That's where this football has to go. I'm going to get back in my drop. I'm going to get the ball to my hand, rather than saying, all right, yeah, technically speaking, versus this coverage, this is where ball needs to go. But if he's not there, I'm not going there. I got to continue to move on my progression. Mm-hmm. But it's just right. It's such a mental block that it could become. And it could force you to release the football early. It could mess with you a lot. And yeah, I mean, look, at times, has he done that? Yeah. At times, has he had some accuracy issues? Yeah, but he did make some great throws. He did some good things in this game. You mentioned situations, and moving on from Sean, there was some stuff situationally in this game I didn't really agree with, Tom. Like, again, the 4th down. Right, you try to just run it up the middle, and you don't get it. Like
the Tyler Warren Wildcat.
yeah. I can't, like, me, like, and it's not just Penn State; it's anybody that does that. Like, I can't stand that. Like, Maryland tried to do that. Like, like, where do you think all the time you're just gonna be able to run it for 2 yards or 3 yards where there's 10 guys in the box? Mm-hmm. Like, give him a run pass option, give him something like that, where if the run isn't there, you can throw it, you run a boot, you go quick game, something like that. After one of the turnovers, right? Run, sprint out pass in a backed up situation. I didn't like that series. I didn't like that series of calls, right? It was tough, man, especially after a fumble in a 14-6 tight game. Now you're punting from the paint, which is always dangerous to be in. And you're giving a good Maryland team the ball, around midfield or so, Tom. They're, and lastly, another point I'd like to bring up, there's a 3rd and 5, right? Maryland plays man. They throw slants. Sean makes a great throw to Dotson, huge play, first down, but they get down into the red zone. Not one attempt to throw it in the end zone. Penn State held to 3 points. So I just felt like there was spots where they could have taken advantage of those situations more.
Yeah, ultimately, Sean ends the day 27 of 47, 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, all to Jahan Dotson. We're going to touch on that in a moment. And then it's this similar play calling split that you and I have lobbied for, and it seems we're getting it, in that it was 47 pass attempts to 33 rushing attempts. The really encouraging thing was, oh my God, Penn State actually ran the ball in a respectable fashion. Granted, it's only 93 yards. It's still relatively anemic. But to your point, Kevon Lee, Noah Cain, John Lovett all had glimmers of success. Granted, you take it with a grain of salt. Maryland is not the best rushing defense in America, but you take what you can get out of the running game. What did you see that maybe could be applied for the rest of the season?
That was it, Tom. Like, that was the point I made with Kevon Lee. It's like, I don't need you to be breaking off runs of 15, 20, 30 yards or anything like that. Like, I just need positive yards. I need it I need enough of a threat there so that our run pass option game can continue to work, so that our quick play action game can work, so that we could push the football down the field and we can get guys biting in the second level or biting from the safety position. Like we talked about Maryland, how aggressive those safeties were. How good were those safeties?
Very good. Very good play all day.
They're good players. They fly around the field. They tackle well. And what was one of the things we talked about? They struggled in passing situations, right? I think they did a great job of going after the safeties in the pass game and finding them in one-on-one. The corner route to Lambert Smith early in the game, and then Dotson goes back to the inside seam route where he faked the in and ran up the seam for a touchdown. Both were on Cross, who does struggle in coverage, but those guys are good players in the run game. But yeah, I need some type of positive yards there. It can't be a problem where, like, you're dancing at the line of scrimmage, you're trying to find cuts, you're trying to find little creases to go through there. You have to continue to try to inch your way downfield so that the whole entire playbook could open up. And I think they did a better job of that, which helped Jahan Dotson out tremendously.
Yeah. So positivity in the run game. Definitely some concerns along the offensive line in terms of pass protection, which is what this offensive line is built to do. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't really great to see, considering Maryland came into the game recording 23 sacks. I believe it was 4th best in the Big Ten. So obviously a good team that can get after the quarterback. So you kind of expected that to a degree. Made Sean a little uncomfortable, but the good thing was that, okay, the running game supported you enough. And it gave Sean enough time to find Jahan Dotson. 11 times for 242 yards and 3 touchdowns. In the process, Jahan Dotson, those 242 yards receiving is the most receiving yards in a game in Penn State history. And it's the longest touchdown reception of his career involved in that as well, for 86 yards in the second half. I mean, we all knew how good Jahan Dotson was. And this was just kind of the showcase game, it felt like. What did you see?
I think what's so impressive about him, I think what's so impressive about him, Tom, is like we all know he has got great hands. He's got great breakaway speed. He goes up and gets the football, but it's the patience with some of the routes that he runs. Like we just talked about the double move versus Nick Cross up the seam for the touchdown, right? You look at 2nd and 17, Maryland goes cover 2. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be Tampa 2, where they're going to try to run the middle linebacker up the middle of the field, but he doesn't do it. But this is what I'm talking about. The patience of Jahan Dotson, right? To take his time, get in there, and then explode up the field, and there's nobody there, and a great accurate throw, and then you're not catching Dotson on that, dude. And
Jahan
it's
Dotson,
just,
yeah.
Yeah, you're not catching him on that, man. It's just so impressive. He's just so smooth. He's getting more confident, more comfortable every single week, and it's like you're not like it's like funny to look at those stats, but you're not surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Because it was quiet. Like it was a quiet day for him. Like I felt like, but you look at it, it's like this guy is he's a fantastic player, and let me tell you something. It hides a ton of your problems as a Penn State offense when you have a guy like Jahan Dotson who is just flat out better than everyone else on the field.
Yeah, I think, if you're going to nitpick anything, it's that, okay, it'd be nice to see more inclusion of other guys. They did try to go to Parker Washington, and there were just a handful of opportunities where Sean was maybe a little inaccurate or he was pressured. But still, Jahan looked fantastic. I believe it was Petros Papadakis from FS1 who made the comparison to former Penn State great Bobby Ingram. And I was like, that's very on point for more of a present comparison. My thought, and it's probably not the same exact height and weight and measurables and such, but Keenan Allen of the Los Angeles Chargers, just in terms of a guy who is smooth, reliable, consistently catches the ball, not the fastest guy in the league. Jahan Dotson has all those measurables. I don't necessarily think he's going to go to the combine at some point and run the fastest 40 of anybody. But man, he just, the one crossing route that he had, he just knew exactly to take this little step inside the defensive back around the referee. And it's like, oh, this is going to draw my coverage right into the ref. And he understood exactly how to work around that kind of rub route, basically, that had been created. So it's just fun to watch. And then the opportunities that he is creating every single week for other receivers like Parker Washington, like Keandre Lambert-Smith. It was great to see Malik Mega get involved. And then, of course, all these tight ends. There's just so many weapons to be utilized when he has a big game like this. You hope that, and I'm curious what you think, is that versus like a Michigan or a Michigan State or a Rutgers, is it all of a sudden, oh my God, we have to stop number 5 at all costs, and then everybody else flourishes?
Well, I think that's the goal for the opposing team every single week. You gotta stop 5, but it's hard to do, and that's one of the great things that Mike Yurcich has done this year. It's creating opportunities for Jahan Dotson to get the football, right? It's not like, all right, we're just going to keep him at the X position, or we're just going to keep him at the Z position, and if they cover him, we'll go throw it somewhere else, right? He'll play outside, he'll play the slot, he'll go short motion, like he'll do a ton of different things that gets coverage off of him, right? Or it creates situations where he's one-on-one versus a safety, or he's got, you're running outside routes, he's got the whole middle of the field to work off of a linebacker, right? He does a really good job of game planning for Jahan Dotson and putting him in that spot where he is first in your progression, and he is where you should go depending on what Maryland's tendencies are in that down and distance. So, I mean, it's a great game planning job by Mike Yurcich. It's a great job of understanding what defenses are doing by Sean Clifford and knowing where the football goes, and finding Jahan Dotson. And that's right. That's something that great coaches do, I think, Tom, is that when you're building a game plan or you're building a play, it starts with who your best player is and saying, okay, here's the route I want him to run versus this coverage, so we can get him the football. Here's where he needs to be. And now where do we build around that? right? And he's done a good job of that. He really has.
I mentioned it before, but as a part of the Big Ten Network, you've had a lot of opportunities to cover the Maryland Terrapin football team. Were you surprised to see their defense kind of hold Penn State into it just felt relatively stagnant in the second and third quarters overall? Was that a surprise to you?
It wasn't, because we talked about that, the defensive line, how fierce those guys are, right? Okuanu had a good day for Maryland. Greg Rose, another defensive lineman, had a good day. They've got a lot of young players as well that play for them. Damian Robinson, Hippolyte. We talked about how aggressive that secondary was in the run game. That's a good football team right there. And I understand they've gotten beat, a few times this year. Teams have put up a lot of points on them. They've struggled with turnovers at times, but that's a team that's going to continue to get better. That's going to win. They're going to win a lot of games, moving forward and in the future. Mike Locksley, has that team believing, and you got a sense of how good they were at times, right? How good Rakim Jarrett was. How about Chigakwanko, the tight end for Maryland? Hey, he had a great day. And again, Talia is still growing and developing as a quarterback, just natural arm talent. Again, he's only a sophomore. I think we forget he's still a young player, right? So he definitely has a lot of improving to do. But where he is right now, man, right, he's still playing at a high level. Yeah, turnovers are a problem, but he's going to be a very good player moving forward.
If he stays, as long as possible at Maryland, because he's got all the same physical gifts that his brother does, Tua. It just seems from the neck up, maybe some of the emotional maturity, and it's not. I don't even think he's really the worst decision maker or anything. And to your point, he's just young, but you can see instances like it was late in the game. There'd been a few turnovers, and he was visibly ticked off, and that's something with Tua. Tua was pretty consistent across the board. You really never saw a whole lot of emotion from him, and that's just experience. That's just maturing.
It's tough, and I think this is the way I thought about after watching that game. When it comes to Talia and when it comes to Maryland, is that he's got to win the game for you, and I think he knows he has to win the game for you, which is why he puts the ball in tough situations, because he's trying to do that. Right? He's not trying.
Yeah,
he's not trying to not lose. He's trying to do everything he can to win. And if that means trying to throw the ball in tight windows or putting it in harm's way at times to try to create big plays, then that's what he's doing right now.
Yeah, and he's got the weapons to do it. It's just going to be a matter of time. And if Mike Locksley stays there long term, Maryland can make some noise. And Mojo Matadi, our guest last Friday on the podcast, I was texting him earlier today. This is Sunday when we're recording this. And not to patronize him or anything, I was like, if you guys were in the Big Ten West, you guys would probably walk away with the division. It's just kind of such a top-heavy group in the East altogether. But we're going to dive into the Penn State defensive effort against the likes of Talia Tagovailoa and company in a moment here, and then just touch briefly on what's coming up this weekend versus Michigan. But before that, all of us involved here in the Paydirt podcast are proud supporters of Thon, also known as the Penn State Dance Marathon. Thon is a year-long effort dedicated to raising funds and awareness for its sole beneficiary, 4 Diamonds at Penn State Health Children's Hospital. Thon is the largest student-run philanthropy in the world, committed to enhancing the lives of children and families impacted by childhood cancer. 4 Diamonds picks up where insurance leaves off to relieve financial stress and provide emotional support so that no family ever has to see a medical bill. Since 1973, Thon has raised over $190 million in the fight against childhood cancer. To learn more about Thon or to donate, visit thon.org. That's THON.org. It's all for the kids. Make a difference in the life of a child today. And on another personal note, we want to take this opportunity to put a spotlight on mental health with a new initiative called Tag Me In. Tag Me In is simply asking for people to tag in on the conversation and help strip away the stigma around mental health. Whether you're looking to lend support, you want to talk, you want to share, maybe you need some help. We want to invite you to join in on the conversation. We encourage you to make a video if you'd like, post it on your social media channels, and use hashtag #TagMeIn and hashtag #TagMeInUnited. At the very least, we want to hear from you. Tag Me In United is a proud partner and supporter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, also known as NAMI. If you'd like to show your support, you can purchase a Tag Me In t-shirt right now at prowrestlingtees.com/tagmeinunited, and the proceeds will be gifted to NAMI. The link to this is provided in the description of this podcast. You are not alone. Tag Me In. Visit tagmeinunited.com to learn more. So on the subject of the Penn State defense and Talia Tagovailoa, Tagovailoa also was slinging it quite a bit, as was Sean Clifford. Ultimately, Tua ends the day 41 of 57, 371 yards, a touchdown and an interception. And he also carried 7 times, minus 29 yards, obviously. The Penn State defensive line was able to get after him, but that is a performance that we kind of expected from him. I know you expected from him because he's a dude who can get back there and really throw it and hurt you. But honestly, this Penn State defense just did exactly what we expected. As many questions as there are about the offense and the identity of this team, as you and I have harped on, we know what the defense is, and they continue to be there every single week.
Yeah, look, you're right. They're very consistent. One of the more consistent defenses in the country. You know, not just the Big Ten. I thought Maryland had a good game plan early on. It seemed like the goal was get the ball out of their hands quick, right? Go to that run pass option, quick game. Penn State did a great job of just keeping everything in front of them early on. Like, listen, you're not going to sit back there and just fire this football down the field, right? You want to take something in front of you, go ahead and take it. We'll make you be patient. We'll make you try to sustain drives and slowly move the way down the field. And if you're able to do that for 4 quarters, then you probably deserve to beat us. Mm-hmm. But again, you're dealing with a young quarterback, a team that has dealt with injuries. That's hard to do. Maryland had, some missed opportunities, right? A few drop passes. And if I can pick on a few things from this defense, at times trouble covering the tight ends, right? We mentioned Aquanko, Deichis had a few catches for them as well. I thought they struggled a little bit with that Maryland tempo offense as well. Obviously, the bad snap was a huge break. But again, right, this defense is loaded with talent. Guys make play after play for them. But again, give Maryland some credit, right? They got in a little bit of a rhythm at times, especially right before the half, right? They got rolling, and it seems like Franklin's receiving a ton of criticism for his decision to not try to put a 2-minute drive together. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, it just seemed like there was frustration in terms of what the offense was able to do, and it was just a matter of like, you know what, let's just live to fight another day kind of mentality. Yeah. I don't know. It just, the way the first half had gone, as a fan watching it, I was like, yeah, let's just kind of go in for the half. But I also understand the people that are like, yo, try and go score some points. So it's just, I don't know. You can rationalize either side. It's tough.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it. I really didn't. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say they should have tried to run the football, try to throw a football down the field. As a quarterback, you always think you have time. You don't care if you have 1 timeout or 0 timeouts or 3 timeouts. You always think you're going to complete 2 passes and you're going to go score, right? But the guy sitting here today, like, the last thing you want to do is give the ball right back to a team and a quarterback who are getting really hot towards the end of the first half. So, look, I understand the decision to not do it, to be safe with the ball. It's 7-6 at that point. The last thing you want to do, again, give them the ball back and have them get 3, or something happens and they get another touchdown and they're leading that half, and then they come out and get the football. Do you know what I mean? So, I don't have a problem with it. You go in, you regroup. You do have the lead, and you figure out, how to make adjustments, which we've talked about that so much over, James Franklin's career, is the adjustments that they make in the second half, and they did a good job of it as well this week.
Brent Pry and his defense, they were fantastic. I was really impressed because it was something that Penn State's been tested on a number of times during the year, and they've answered all the questions correctly to that test just about every single time, is that when you try and work the perimeter consistently against them, when you try and get your athletes in space beyond the hashes, Penn State can run with you. The secondary, the linebackers, that is what this defense is built to do. It's the old cliche of playing sideline to sideline. You do not want to be in space with Ellis Brooks, Curtis Jacobs, and Brandon Smith. You do not want to have to meet one of the corners if you're a wide receiver in a blocking assignment and then try and get that guy off the ball, because Jaquan Brisker or Jair Brown are right behind him. coming in to just level the ball carrier. So
Yeah.
that group just continues to play at a very high level. And the thought that I had as I was watching this game, and we've complimented this secondary so many times. I understand that the measure of being an NFL draft pick does not necessarily indicate how talented you are, and you can attest to that. You went undrafted and you had a great career in the NFL. But the way I look at the top 5 guys in this secondary in terms of Brisker, Brown, Castro Fields, Porter Jr., and Daquan Hardy, all 5 of those guys look like they can play in the NFL and potentially be very high draft picks. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. We talk about it every single week. I mean, that is the strength of this team. That is the strength of this defense. Guys makes play after play after play, and I think Brown had a fantastic game, but like he kind of gets lost in the shuffle too when we talk about these guys, because we talk a lot about Joey Porter, Tariq Castro Fields. Everybody talks about how great Brisker is, and Brown's just as good as the rest of them. So it's a strong, solid group, about as good as you're going to see in the country. They did a fantastic job of limiting that deep playability, and they did a great job of limiting those, go create plays that we've seen Talia do a lot. Now he got away with some because he's a fantastic athlete, but not a ton of them. Right. And when I'm watching this game, Tom, I'm like, don't let them hang around. Don't let them hang around. You can't let this team stay in this game. There's about 3:20 left. I'm thinking that right now. I'm like, they're putting a drive together.
Yeah.
Haven't been able to put them away up to this point. What does Brown do? Jumps a cross route, pick 6. I mean, that's just him understanding concepts, understanding quarterback progressions, what a quarterback's looking for in that situation. Like that's such a smart play. We talk about how physically gifted these guys are right there. I mean, that's preparation right there. That's watching film, understanding your opponent's offense, man. That's like that. Like the first thing I thought of was like, and I'm not comparing him to this guy, so don't say I'm comparing him to this guy, but like that's like a Charles Woodson move. Like, because I was like the scout team quarterback for the Raiders, so like I would go drop back to pass and I would throw a ball, and out of nowhere Charles Woodson would either pick it off or he would break it up, and I'm like,
sounds like a nightmare.
I'm like, where did you just come from? That's not the coverage, dude. Like you're not supposed to be there. But that's what I'm talking about. That's what separates great safeties from like the rest of the pack, is they just understand what offenses are trying to do, and that's exactly what Brown did in that situation.
Brown can do that. Brisker does that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
God, that sounds like an absolute nightmare just to practice. My thought, I mean, like, Jair is just Mr. Turnover at this point. How many times this season has he just been Johnny on the spot?
Yeah.
And we talked about it going to the Iowa game. Just it's like, oh, they get so many interceptions and they're ball hawking secondary. I was like, man, Jair Brown is the definition of a ball hawk. Yeah. Like he just goes after it, man. So I don't know. We're all very biased as Penn State fans, but I think that top 5 of defensive backs, we're going to see them all on Sundays. I'm very curious to see where all of them get drafted respectively. I personally think Brisker's a first rounder. We'll see. He'll probably be first or second or something like that. But one thing that was really nice to see for the first time in weeks is that Penn State's defense finally stopped somebody in the running game. Especially after the Illinois game, 357 yards rushing, and everybody else having gray hairs over that one. Maryland, 27 carries for 48 yards. You do get a touchdown on the ground. We knew that Maryland was not built to be a dominant rushing team. However, the way Penn State had played, it was kind of the Jekyll and Hyde thing that we've discussed on this podcast. Is that it's like, all right, what version are you going to get? And it was a pleasant surprise. Did you see something that they did differently, or was it just kind of these guys maturing into their roles?
Yeah, it seemed like they wanted to make a point to stop the run game. And I think Maryland started to realize that. Like Maryland didn't entirely abandon the run until really late in the game. And that's what we talked about like last week, how Maryland was just going to try to continue to run it, but kind of felt like it got to a point where it's like, it's not there. We got to throw the football. And they did that, but I think Penn State understood that. So that's what Penn State was able to kind of just start to soften up a little bit, right? Able to play with a little bit of depth to stop those big throws down the field by Talia and company. But yeah, that's what you have to do moving forward. And I know we're going to talk about this more on Friday's show. But that's a tall task this week to be able to stop the run against one of the best Big Ten rushing teams in Michigan. Coming up on noon on Saturday.
One of the best in the country. Michigan is outstanding when it comes to that. So Penn State walks away with a 31-14 win. And it's something that we talked about with Mojo Matati, is that he's like, this isn't even really a rivalry. However, all the seeds for a rivalry are there. I talked about it on Friday, and I thought it was in 2018, but I went back and checked, and it was actually the 2014 game when Maryland came to Beaver Stadium and refused to shake the hands of Penn State players. And then we got a new wrinkle during this game, and that Talia Tagovailoa goes out of bounds, and he gets shoved hard down to the ground by Penn State's Rasheed Walker. Personally, I was kind of like, I think Talia might have a beef here. I think Rasheed was maybe just kind of surprised. And, oh, by the way, he's an offensive lineman. His whole life is punching outwards with his palms. So I was like, I think he was maybe surprised and just defending himself. But he also didn't back down from it. But I don't know. What did you think of the entire scenario there specifically?
I mean, that was full extension, dude. Like, he full out pushed the kid.
And Talia was like, the ref didn't see it, so it was like I personally think Talia had a gripe, but he leveled him.
At least, like, if you don't want to help him like pull up, just at least get out of the way and let him keep running or something like that. Like he legit pushed him, and then like he tried to pull his hands back to like I didn't push him.
Well, they cut to him again, and he was like jaw jacking with the other sideline, and I was like, okay,
yeah.
Like,
I can't believe that didn't get called. Like
just basically, I saw Talia go up to the ref afterward, and I think I could see the ref say, "It's like, I'm sorry, I didn't see it." Like he was just, I think he was, I don't know where the linesman was, but it's just one of those things. And then like the Penn State fans travel extraordinarily well. I had some friends at the game, and it's like half the stadium, more than that, are Penn State fans. The band. The entire second half, I could hear the band clear as day, as if it was being played at Beaver Stadium. So I think all the seeds are there for Maryland fans and players and coaches to be like, we got to get them. So it's just a game to be careful of every year. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't feel safe every year.
Maryland's got to get a lot better, I think, to be on that level and to kind of consider it a rivalry moving forward. But you're right. Like the distance helps, the ability for fans to travel back and forth to opposing stadiums. Obviously now there's been some, as you mentioned, some past history in these games, things that have happened throughout the course of these games. So, I mean, I hope it turns into a rivalry, because it'd be great. I mean, there's so many great rivalries throughout the Big Ten. I mean, Penn State, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State. You want to add Penn State, Maryland now into that mix. I think it'd be great, man. Just, it pumps you up each and every week for a game, right? It gets you excited, it gets the fans excited, it gets the media excited, right? It's good for college football. It's good for the Big Ten.
The recruiting battle is there. The relationship between Franklin and Loxley is there. I think the world of Mike Loxley. I think he's an outstanding football coach, and he's perfect for that program. And, so many guys on the Penn State roster are from the Beltway or from the DMV, so to speak. Like they're winning that battle there. And if Maryland is able to slowly gain ground in that respect, they're going to be much more competitive as years go by. The one question I do want to end on is, now that Penn State's got a win, 6-3, you're about to host Michigan at home this Saturday, November 13th at noon on ABC. Michigan, if I can double check the rankings, they are number 7 currently, and they are 7th in the country in terms of rushing, 234 yards per game. They are 6th in points allowed. This is an outstanding team. Penn State's got a lot of work to do. However, does this win against Maryland quell the issues around James Franklin ahead of this Michigan game?
Are you talking about him in the media and taking another job? Because I haven't heard much about it.
Winning cures all.
I mean, I think people, I think, to be frank, I just think people are tired of talking about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you feel like you're talking about it every single week, and it's kind of to the point now where it's just like, all right, man, like, I don't care. There's games left on the schedule. You got to continue to play the season. We don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, you're not going to tell us what's happening. You look at PJ Fleck, right? His name popped up maybe for about a week for that USC job or taking another job, and then now he's signed through 2028. I think he handled that tremendously. He signed the contract in front of his team. He talked about how he didn't want it to be a distraction, anything like that. So I thought that was handled perfectly by him. And, then they go and get beat by Illinois.
Hey, we know that pain. Credit to Brett Bielema. That's a tough team.
So, but yeah, I mean, look, this is a big one, for Penn State this Saturday. So the last thing you need is a distraction. But I don't think they're going to have one now. I think the media has backed off a little bit because I think people are just tired of talking about it. They're tired of writing about it. They're tired of dealing with it.
Yeah. We'll see. Michigan is at number 9 currently in the AP Top 25. So just depending on where you look, they will be visiting number 23 Penn State this Saturday at noon on ABC. We will have a full preview of that this Friday here on the Paydirt podcast. As always, like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications. Thank you all so much for listening. This is a big week for Penn State football, and who knows, this could make the season if the Nittany Lions are able to upset the Wolverines. So very much looking forward to breaking that down with you, Matt, and we'll see you all this Friday for another edition of Paydirt.